Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to make a gorgeous loaf of homemade sourdough with a lot of steps and over quite a bit of time, but this is time stamped. I'm going to show you exactly everything I do to end up with a loaf like this and also explain a few mistakes I've made along the way. Okay, so step one is 9:45 on Saturday night. Obviously, this doesn't have to be 9:45 on Saturday night, but the day before I want to bake. I've got 40 grams of my starter, which has been in the fridge and is a bit stanky at the moment, but that's okay. So I'm planning to make my dough tomorrow. I know that I have 40 grams in here, and because I'm going to leave it overnight to peak, I'm going to feed it on a 1:2 ratio, which means 1 part starter to 2 parts water and flour. You don't want to ever do less than 1:1:1. So whatever you've got in here, if it's 40 grams, you're going to need at least 40 flour and 40 water. That will peak the quickest because I want it to be ready in the morning and I don't want it to peak overnight when I'm in bed. I'm going to do 1:2:2, so it'll just take a little bit longer. So in here, 80 grams, double that of warm water. I think it helps get the yeast nice and active quicker. And then 80 grams of strong white bread flour. I always use this one. I've really been enjoying making this, making my loaves with this, which is the Dove's Farm one. You can get it in, I think, Waitrose or Sainsbury's. But basically you want any strong white flour that has at least like 13 grams of protein per 100 grams. And this is not like gym girl protein stats. This is like, it needs to be strong enough for the gluten to build up enough strength to become a lovely bread. So 80 grams. I also do want quite a lot of starter because you don't ever want to run out. You always want to have a little bit to keep in the fridge to feed it next time. So that's 80 grams. And then I'm going to give it a good old mix with my little baby spatula. The jar is usually very messy. People put it into a clean one sometimes after that, but I usually can't be bothered, so I just scrape it down just so you can see the level of where it's been fed to. So kind of just looks like a thick Yorkshire pudding mix or something like that. And then what I will usually do is scrape down the sides just so I can see the level of where it is. These little elastic bands from like that you get on your herbs, keep it around the jar. I'm then going to have that level at roughly where that starter is. Stick the lid on top but not airtight, and then I think that should probably take around 8 to 12-ish hours before it doubles or peaks. It doesn't always double, but you'll know when it's ready to bake. I mean, I'll show you hopefully in the morning because it will be bubbly. It will kind of be domed on top and you can see, you know, when it's still rising versus when it's already fallen because you'll see the line on the side of the jar. So I'm going to leave that there. I've got the rough marker. It's 20 degrees in my kitchen, which is probably on the cooler side. So if you are in a warmer environment like 22, 24 degrees, that's going to peak a lot quicker. So this is night before, 9:50 now on Saturday. We're going to come back in the morning and make the dough. Good morning. I've just come into the kitchen and it is about, what time is it? 9 o'clock on Sunday. So just less than 12 hours. This has definitely grown. We're definitely not at double yet. So I'm going to leave it for a little bit longer, but you can see, yes, it's grown in terms of the level, but also what we're looking for is this like lovely bubbliness. We want like a bit of a dome as well, which I think we haven't quite got yet. So I'm going to leave it for another couple of hours just to see if it keeps going. If not, to be honest, like if it doesn't double, this consistency is good because you can see how much activity there is in there. Like look at those bubbles. Oh, I'm gonna leave her there for a couple more hours and see how much more activity we get, and then I will mix the dough. Okay, it is now 11 o'clock. I gave the starter a couple more hours and it's looking a lot better. It's also looking a lot bubblier. If you look on Instagram, TikTok, Google recipes, they will all be very slightly different. I have given quite a few a go and this is what works best for me in my kitchen at this temperature. Yeah, it's about 19 degrees now, so slightly on the chillier side probably than some people's kitchens. But this is the quantities that kind of work for me. I do think that you do have to just give this a go. That's kind of the annoying thing about sourdough, is that, you know, you can't really follow a step-by-step recipe with timings and quantities. It will always look different for everyone because of temperature and probably some other factors, but the only one I understand well so far is temperature. So I'm going to start with the warm water. I go in with 325 ml of warm water. You can overdo it really easily. There we go, 325 grams, 325 ml. And then I'm gonna go in with 125 grams of active starter. This is the thing I really did not understand when I started baking, because I bought some starter and it was like, put 100 grams of starter in. I was like, yeah. I hadn't done the fed peak whole situation as we did last night. So yeah, this is really key. The way to know as well if your starter is ready, when you put in your starter, it should float in the water. It shouldn't sink to the bottom. So I'm going in with 125 grams and you can see it's like really gloopy, really bubbly. Hey, 125 grams, spot on, that never happens. I'm gonna leave that back on the side. I could feed this again, but I'm not gonna bake now till next week. So what I'll probably just do is sit this in the fridge and then get it out before I want to bake again next week, do the whole feed processing again. But let me just show you what this looks like inside. You can see the starter is floating. Looks kind of gross, to be honest. I like to mix the starter and the water together first, just really quickly in the KitchenAid. I use the whisk attachment for this, but like this really does not need to be done with a KitchenAid. I just have it quite new, so I like to use it. But with a lot of sourdough starter kits, you get one of these funny looking things that people use to mix the starter and water. That works great. Just gonna give that a quick mix. Perfect, and then I'm gonna add my flour. So same flour that I used to feed the starter. You can of course use other flours, like I am using white bread flour. You can use wholemeal, rye. Again, depending on the flour you use, the dough is gonna react slightly different in terms of the timings and everything. So when you change something, it does just take a little bit of practice to then perfect it again. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add then 500 grams of strong white bread flour into my mix. Oh my god, there was a spoon in there. 506, that'll do. Perfect, and then I'm gonna switch over to my dough hook on my KitchenAid and give that a good mix. Again, you don't need a mixer for this, like the mixing part is not the hard part of making sourdough. I know a lot of people would just do it with a spoon and then get in there with their hands when it gets a bit awkward. But it is a messy sort of mixture and forms like a really shaggy dough. People always say shaggy dough when you're talking about sourdough, which I had no idea what that means, but when I show you, you will know what it means. It's not smooth dough, it doesn't look pretty. It kind of looks like something maybe, like if a kid was making cookies, that's exactly how it looks. Most of the dough gets stuck to the dough hook. So I usually just use this dough scrape. I mean, it does fall off as you can see, but I will just use my dough scrape to kind of get it all off. Dough scrapes are so good. Like you definitely want one of these to hand when you're making sourdough because it's just so good for like picking things up, scraping out the bowl. Here is my shaggy dough. It's just, it kind of looks a bit messy, like it doesn't look like it's gonna form anything artisan anytime soon. And all I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna let it rest on the counter for 30 minutes. I'm gonna stick a cloth over it, then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna add 10 grams of salt. Table salt, definitely not any flaky, rocky salt. You want really fine sea salt for this. And do my first set of stretch and folds. So technically now, as soon as the starter is mixed with the flour and the water, this is when our bulk fermentation starts, which is basically a fancy way of saying proving. So what's happening now is like the dough, the yeast is starting to work in the dough, and we also want to build up strength in the gluten, which is why we're going to do our stretch and folds. You might have seen some sourdough charts. I'll put one here up on the screen that says how long bulk fermentation takes at different temperatures. So once we've done our stretch and folds, that's going to be in about a couple of hours now, or an hour and a half. We don't want to measure it from when that's done. We want to measure it from now. So for me, that's 11:10. I'm going to come back at 11:40, add my salt, do my first set of stretch and folds, but bulk fermentation is already underway then. Okay, it's been half an hour, so we're gonna add our salt. The dough pretty much looks the same, to be fair. Still pretty shaggy, whatever that means. So I'm gonna stick my dough back on the scales and I'm gonna add 10 grams of fine sea salt. I try and spread it kind of evenly over the dough so it's a bit easier to mix by hand. 12, that'll do. Not too bothered. And then I'm gonna kind of just like mix it in with my hands. So the salt at the moment is just kind of sitting on top. I'm just gonna kind of like almost prod it in with my hands. So one thing to definitely have on hand when you're making sourdough is a spray bottle, because when your hands are wet, the dough is a lot easier to handle. You'll find it will stick to your fingers a lot more if your fingers aren't wet. So I'm just gonna use one hand and I'm just gonna literally stick my fingers in at different points. You can see it looks like that, just to kind of mix the salt in, just to put it into the dough, like so. I know some recipes say that you don't need to wait half an hour before adding the salt, and they would do that right at the beginning. Again, this is just what I've started doing, and it works for me, so I'm gonna carry on that way. Then we're gonna do our first stretch and fold. So a stretch and fold is basically, we're trying to strengthen the gluten. So what I will do is I will grab an edge of the dough, stretch it, and then fold it back down. Twist by 90 degrees, grab the edge, stretch, fold it back down. Again, I'm going to do that in all four corners. So at first, you don't get much stretch. By the end, as the gluten has built up a lot more strength, you'll be like, wow, I can really stretch and fold. At the beginning, it's a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. So what I'll do is I will grab the edge of my dough like so, stretch and fold it over. Again, the first one, not much happens because again, the dough isn't super strong yet. I'm going to twist, stretch, fold and put down on the next clip when it looks, on the next set when the dough is a little bit more strong and I can get a bit of stretch out of it. I'll film from above so you can see a bit better, but you just don't want to tear the dough. So when you do the stretch, pick it up, stretch a little bit. I feel like I'm going to tear it if I go further, and then just fold it over. So I've done 4, maybe 5. I'm just going to do one more because I feel like I just found a big pocket of salt. So stretch, hey, bit better that one, and fold over. And that's it. We're going to pop that tea towel back on top and leave for another half an hour before I do my second set of stretch and fold. So I usually do 3. I'd mix the dough, wait for half an hour, add the salt, do my first step, again, cover, wait half an hour, do my second set, cover again, half an hour for the third set. Then after that, I will just leave it to do its bulk fermentation or prove on the side. Then when it's done, we'll talk about how we know whether that's done a bit later. Then I will shape it, put it in its banneton and stick it in the fridge overnight for its cold fermentation. Sourdough is very needy. That is definitely one thing I have learnt from this whole process. There's a lot of stages, but it's super worth it. And it does also feel really time consuming, but like, you know, in the last like half an hour, I went to the shop, got my breakfast stuff. The next half an hour, I'll have a tidy of the house. So as long as you're around, it's fine. Yeah, you don't need to be like constantly attending to it. Anyway, I will see you in half an hour. Okay, so it's been another half an hour and I'm ready to do my second set of stretch and fold. So again, just gonna make sure my hand's nice and wet. I'm gonna grab that corner, give it a good old stretch, fold, and then twist. Grab that corner, again, good old stretch, and fold. Hands aren't wet enough. Same on this side, stretch, fold, and last one, stretch, and fold. Cool, and you can see that the dough is starting to look a lot more smooth, like it's not as shaggy as it was before. I'm also just gonna tidy up the bowl a little bit and just get the edges looking all nice. I might just do one more stretch and fold, tuck it under just so it's all sat nice and neat. So gonna wait another half an hour for the last time, cover her up, and then we will do the third set of stretch and folds. Then it's just a case of leaving it to bulk. Okay, it's been another half an hour. It's now 12:40, so I'm going in with my final set of stretch and folds, and you can see as well the dough looks so much more smooth and like it's actually going to become something that looks a bit more sourdoughy, I guess. So spray over the hands and then the usual drill, grab from the side, nice big stretch and fold, and I can already see that the dough is becoming like a lot more, I guess, less weak. It feels stronger. It feels like you can stretch it. It's got a bit more kind of tension in it, whereas before it felt like if I could rip it. So you do have to be quite gentle at the beginning. Stretch, fold, twist, stretch, fold, and twist. Perfect. So that's that. That's all the stretch and folds done now. I'm now going to head out, so I'm going to leave it just on the side. If I was staying at home, I might put it in the oven with the light on. Again, just monitoring the temperature, but because I'm going to be out for a few hours, like I know this is going to take a while to double in size at this temperature, so I'm just going to leave it on the side and then I'll come and check when I'm home. But essentially what we're looking for at this stage is for the dough to roughly double in size. You'll also see when it's ready, because it will kind of have like a bit of a domed top, I guess the same as the sourdough starter, a bit of a dome top, some bubbles, and you'll also, if you prod it, like right now, if I stuck my finger in, that's going to happen. So like it's definitely not ready. But what should happen when you prod it is that it should leave a little dent that doesn't instantly kind of fill back up. It should leave a slight little dent in it. So I like that little kind of prod test to know whether it's ready. So covering it up, and probably we're going to come back realistically at like maybe 4 or 5 p.m, maybe later for the shaping. Again, I'm doing this kind of slow version today. If I wanted to speed it up, I could have done it in the oven with the light on. I could have started really early and I could have, you know, had it already in the fridge like now, ready to bake tomorrow. But yeah, no rush today. I know I'm going to bake this tomorrow, so I'm just going to let her do her thing and then hopefully double in size by this evening. Okay, so it is almost 5 o'clock. I'm going to check on the dough. I can see straight away it's not done yet. So yes, it has expanded out from kind of like the little ball to the sides, which is good, but it's still looking very much not ready. A way to know is like the kind of little prod test. So what I want to do is prod it and it's a spring back slowly, but not quite the whole way. So I'm guessing when I do it now, yeah, it's going to leave an indent. It doesn't really spring back at all, which is how I know it is not at all done yet. So I'm going to cover it up and I'm going to give it probably another half an hour, check again. Usually what happens is nothing for ages and then lots of things really quickly. So it's good to check it closer to the time. Another thing is that you should hopefully see like a bubble or two around the edge and it should be quite wobbly. There's a little bit of wobble, not much really. So I want a bit more wobble, bit of bubble, and when I poke it for that indent to kind of refill most of the way. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. You can just see I've done a few more prods. It's looking better, but we're still not quite there yet. Could be a bit more jiggly, and you can see there's some kind of air bubbles here, but we haven't got that puffy domed kind of shape that we're looking for. So I'm going to leave it for another half an hour, 40 minutes and check again. Obviously this has been a long time waiting for this to be done now, but if your kitchen is warmer, it's not going to take this long. And if you stick the bowl in the oven with the light on, it will also go a lot quicker. So this is kind of like the most stripped back version of the recipe. But yeah, you can see some points when I touch it, it fills back in. Some points, not quite. I think we're very close, but not quite there. Okay, it is 7 o'clock and I think we're good to go. So we're going to shape the dough. For this next stage, you're going to need your baton. So I love this one and you can kind of see how used it has been. Like it looked quite dirty, but this is good. Because what happens is I flour it every time and then I don't wash this linen, which means it kind of builds up a bit of a floury skin, which again sounds gross, but it basically means that the dough doesn't stick to it, so that's good. Got my dough scrape. We are now at the point where, yes, this is puffed up really nicely, so hopefully you can see that really well. It comes back most of the way, and it just kind of looks a bit more like, I would say drier on top, but what we're gonna do now is we're gonna shape. So I use rice flour for this because it's just really great for the dough not sticking to anything. However, you don't want to use too much flour at this stage. So I literally put like a super light coating of rice flour on the side. Then I'm going to tip out my dough. So I'm just going to use my dough scrape to get around the edges and then plop her, come on, plop her out like so. Woo. Missed a little bit in there. So I'm just going to add that bit in, that's fine. There's so many different ways that you can shape the dough. I really like this method that I saw the other day, which is basically where you get the ends and it is sticky. So I like to just use my dough scrape as a little bit of help. So you basically get the ends and you stick them together like this. And you're going to keep going with that and it's just going to build up tension in the dough until you have like a really nice tight ball. So I'm going to do that like that. And then I'm going to do it again on the other sides. Again, look, stick, 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 stick. And you can see it's just becoming like more of a tight ball every time. If I use too much flour, I wouldn't be able to stick these edges together as well as I am now. But yeah, again, I just use my dough scrape to get that first bit up so I'm not tearing it. And I'm going to keep going with a few of these. Again, this is like not an advanced method, but this really works for me and it creates like a really nice bit of tension. But I've seen other people kind of stretch out the dough and fold, roll it up into a tight ball. There's loads of different ways you can do it. You can do some like shaping and scooping around into a ball with the dough scrape. So I think this is maybe my fourth one now that I am folding and pinching, but you can see how it's becoming a lot more tense in its shape. I'm going to try one more. I think I might be able to go again. Yeah, I'm pushing it now, but that's good because that's a good sign that I've done enough and I've created enough tension in the dough. So I'm just gonna stick the sides together like that. You can also kind of like pinch a bit and almost like knot it over. So you're almost like knitting it on the top. Just again, so you've got a really nice tight ball, I guess. And then I just like to kind of make sure that I've got a really nice circular shape like that. And that's all I do. That works really well for me. At this stage as well, if that's holding a really nice shape, like you know you're off to a winner. If at this point the dough is really slack, it's kind of just, it doesn't hold a shape like that and it just falls onto the surface and goes really flat, then you probably overproofed. It's fine. Still bake it anyway, stick it in the banneton. It's gonna come out, probably stick to the banneton a bit more, but you will bake it. It will rise. It won't rise as well as a well-proofed dough, but it will still taste good. So definitely don't waste it. I have eaten a lot of overproofed doughs. We've eaten a lot of overproofed doughs in this house whilst I've been perfecting this. I'm gonna add a little sprinkle of extra rice flour here, pop it in. Oh, I didn't wet that hand. And just make sure again, I've got that nice stitch on top, just where I've accidentally loosened that up a bit. And that's my dough. That's gonna now go in the fridge for our second stage of proving, I guess, which is the cold fermentation. So it's currently 7 o'clock right now, we're on Sunday. And what I could do, I mean, the dough really only needs like minimum 8 to 12 hours in the fridge, but you can leave it longer. That will take me to tomorrow morning. I am going to work really early to the gym at around 5:45 tomorrow. So what I will do is I'll just leave it until I get back, which is going to be around like 2 o'clock. So it'll be there for a bit longer, be about 18 hours, but that's fine. I think only when you get past 24 hours, I've seen people do 48, 72. I think supposedly you can push it too far. It's probably a bit more of an advanced technique, but overnight's usually fine. But you know, if you need to bake it in the afternoon rather than the morning, that's fine. Just whatever really works best for your schedule. So a typical kind of schedule for sourdough would be you would make the dough on Saturday, then bake it Sunday morning, so you've got it for Sunday morning breakfast or lunch or whatever. I'm just doing it this way because that's when I started it on Saturday. I'm going to cover it again and put it in the fridge. Again, I'm not really sure why. I should probably know that. But I'm going to cover it, put it in the fridge. And then you'll notice as well, when I do take it out of the fridge tomorrow, like this will fill the banneton. So I've got these empty edges here. That will be full and it will be quite puffed up. So it's kind of going to continue to ferment, which is going to like deepen the flavour and everything else. But we're going to have a massively lower temperature for this next stage. Stick her in there. And that's it. Hands are covered in dough. Best thing to do is use your dough scrape for this, rather than putting it your hands straight under the water, because it just becomes quite sticky and gross. So I just try and get as much off as I can with my dough scrape first. Again, wet your hands before handling the dough a little bit, just because that makes it a lot easier. I actually forgot to do it just now, so you saw my hands sticking to it a bit more than normal, and same on the side. If you've got dough on your side, use the dough scrape. Works really nicely to get off any excess bits of dough or rice flour. So you just put it straight in there and then pour it into the bin. Hey guys, it is now day 3 of me baking this bloody loaf of bread. And it's finally time to bake. As I said, it is early afternoon, 1ish on Monday. I've just got back from work. Otherwise, you could bake it the next morning, absolutely fine. First things first, we've got to get this oven nice and hot. So I'm going to put my oven on 250 degrees and set it to preheat. We also want to preheat your cast iron or your Dutch oven. So this is what I'm going to be baking in. This isn't like a bread oven, this is just a regular Dutch oven, but I'll pop it in and pop the lid on. But the oven wants to be hot, 250 degrees, and this also wants to be preheated. Some recipes say you need to preheat this for like 30, 45 minutes once the oven's already 250, which feels for me like overkill. So what I'm going to do is I just put the oven on and I just put this straight in, and then when the oven beeps that it's preheated, I stick it in. So I'm going to do that. I think it works fine for me, and it then feels like I don't have the oven on 250 degrees for like an hour more than I need it. So I'm gonna stick this in and get this nice and warm. Whilst that's doing that, I'm just gonna check in on my bread. So hopefully we will see that is a lot bigger than when we put it in here yesterday. I'm not gonna take it out of the fridge just yet. I'm gonna keep it in there until the oven's preheated. Then we'll do our scoring and put it in the oven. But yeah, I don't want it to get too warm and then start over-proving. So we're gonna keep it in the fridge. We're gonna bake this in 2 stages. Where the hell did I put my cast iron? Oh, it's in the oven, isn't it? It's preheating. This is good. That's where it's meant to be. We're going to bake this in 2 stages. So we're going to do 35 minutes, bread in the cast iron, lid on, 35 minutes at 250. Then we bring it out, lid comes off, and bake for a further 10 minutes at slightly lower 220. I'm going to just cut up a bit of baking paper, and I'm going to flop my bread out, my dough, to see how she is looking. You're then going to need a scorer, lame I think they call them. I just use like a razor, basically a razor blade. Oven preheated. Hopefully when I flop it out, it stays stays in shape. If at this point it goes poof, all is not lost, but it's probably just a bit overproofed. So bake it anyway, see how you go. So if you do want to do a kind of fancy pattern, you can. I'm going to put you from bird's eye view for this next bit, but if you are going to do any sort of leaf or pattern, do that first before the big score, because you'll kind of lose all the tension with the big score and then it'll be much harder to do the pattern. So let me just flip you round. I'm going to try a little pattern. I'll be honest, I'm not very good at these, but I'm just going to try like a really simple leaf. So I'll do the little bit at the top and then a symmetrical leaf coming off. Maybe I'll do 4 or 5 on each side, and then this is where the air will escape from the dough, so obviously these will puff up a bit more. There we go, that will do. Then the most important part, so this is not aesthetic at all, this is functional. We need a good score. So you want to put in the lame like at an angle, so 45 degrees. You don't want to go straight, you want to go on that slant so you get that nice ear. So I'm going to go from here, and I like to kind of do this like chopping motion, like so, all the way down the bread. Should be slightly curved, I didn't get that nice curve as well today, but you can see when the bread opens up that you can see those nice bubbles inside and how that's proved. It looks really, really nice. So time to get it in. Okay, you definitely need oven gloves for this. So I'm gonna take out the cast iron, I'm gonna take the lid off. I mean, be careful as well, depending on what your surfaces are made of. This is like concrete, so we are fine to stick a 250 degree cast iron on the side. You're then gonna need your old friend, your spray. You can also use ice for this. So some people put the dough in the oven, put a couple of ice cubes underneath the baking paper, and that creates steam. I just give it a little spray, that works fine for me. So this is quite a quick one. So that comes out. We're gonna go quite quick. Plop her in, just be careful, it's really hot. And then good old spray to create some steam. When I put that lid back on, you will hear it. And then straight in the oven for 35 minutes, so get that timer on. Okay, it's been 35 minutes, so moment of truth. Let's see how the bread is looking. I just leave the oven door open for a minute because we want it to cool down slightly to 220, so I just let it lose a bit of heat. Okay. Oh. Looks fab. Looks good. We've got a nice crust, nice air, nice score. My pattern's lost down the side a bit, but we're going to let it brown up for a little bit more for the next 10 minutes. So popping it back in. 10 minutes at 220 degrees. Let's get her out. Hey. It looks pretty good, so I'm happy with that. The last really annoying thing to do is wait until it's cool. So you do not want to cut into your bread until it's completely cool, because the inside will continue to cook as it cools down. So I will take mine, go from the other side. So I will take mine out of the Dutch oven and just leave it to cool on the side. You can see I kind of kept a bit of my pattern here. I think I needed to make it bigger, but that's okay. I'm gonna let it cool, and then we will do our final cut and crunch test. Okay, our bread is cooled nicely, so let's cut into it. Hey, look at that. Nice ear, 2 ears kind of. Smells delish. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. It is very long-winded, but so is learning how to make sourdough. So I hope you have a successful next bake, and if not, come back, watch this video again. There will always be something that you can tweak to hopefully nail it.